Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Holistic Survival Show with Jason Hartman. The economic storm brewing around the world is set to spill into all aspects of our lives. Are you prepared? Where are you going to turn for the critical life skills necessary to survive and prosper? The Holistic Survival Show is your family's insurance for a better life. Jason will teach you to think independently, to understand threats, and how to create the ultimate action plan. Sudden change or worst case scenario, you'll be ready. Welcome to Holistic Survival, your key resource for protecting the people, places, and profits you care about in uncertain times. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Jason Hartman.
Welcome to the Holistic Survival Show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, where we talk about protecting the people, places, and profits you care about in these uncertain times. We have a great interview for you today, and we will be back with that in less than 60 seconds on the Holistic Survival Show. And by the way, be sure to visit our website at holisticsurvival.com. You can subscribe to our blog, which is totally free, has loads of great information, and there's just a lot of good content for you on the site. So make sure you take advantage of that at holisticsurvival.com. We'll be right back. It's my pleasure to welcome Daniel Estulin to the show. He is a very interesting guy with a few books out, and one of them is The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, but that prompted him to write another book about transhumanism. And I think you'll find this interview interesting on about 3 different levels as we delve into the Bilderberg Group, the financial crisis, and transhumanism. And let's define what that is. But first, Daniel, you're coming to us from Madrid, Spain today. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor to be in your show. I'm very well. Blaze of glory, as we say in this part of the world.
Fantastic. Well, you're an international best-selling author who wrote the book, The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, and there are many conspiracy theories surrounding the Bilderberg Group. And then I guess a report you found prompted you to write a book about transhumanism. Tell us how that all came together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As we discussed a little bit before the interview, there are a lot of crazy conspiracy theories out there, and I'd like to dispel some of them. Bilderberg is not a conspiracy theory; it's a conspiracy reality, I guess you would say it. It was a very important element of the oligarchical structures of the Cold War period in the 50s and the early 1960s, and that in and of itself is a pretty significant factor because what it meant was that Bilderberg was a vehicle through which private financier oligarchical structures were able to impose their policies on what is nominally sovereign governments. And I guess the biggest scandal part of the whole Bilderberg conspiracy was that it was heavily populated by people who came out of the old World War II Nazi apparatus, people such as Prince Bernhard, one of the founders of the Bilderberg Group, or Walter Hallstein, the key Nazi lawyer apparatchik on whose legal papers, the whole concentration camp philosophy of Hitler was based, and Hallstein became the first president of the European Commission. And so these, Nazis who were basically cleaned up and dusted off and employed by these, supranational organizations to become a hardcore element of the Cold War anti-Soviet structures in the West. Now, that said, I think it's also very important to dispel some of these conspiracy theories. No, Bilderberg is not a secret society. It's not an evil, all-seeing eye or Jewish Masonic conspiracy. There is no conspiracy, even though a lot of people, their infantile fantasies see it as such. And as I said before, no group of people, I don't care how powerful they are, sit around a table in a dark room holding hands, staring at a crystal ball, planning the world's domination. Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Lupini Circle, Bohemian Grove, and all these other organizations, private and semi-secret. None of them are secret. If they were secret, we wouldn't even know that they exist. It's a meeting of people who represent a certain ideology. And Bilderberg, in this sense, is a medium of bringing together financial institutions, which are the world's most powerful and most predatory financial interests. And, the idea that what they're after has nothing to do with one world government, which is, you hear that a lot, one world order. It's a concept of one world company limited, corporations that have a lot more power than any government on the planet, and that is something we see all around us today.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, very, very interesting. And so where did the transhumanism part come in, though?
Back in 2005, I started researching Bilderberg back in 1995, really. I got my first wind of these people existed in 1992 when a friend of mine with connections to a Russian Secret Service and Canadian government told me, matter-of-factly, over lunch in Toronto, how in 1995, that's 3 years into the future, there's going to be a referendum in Quebec, which is a French-speaking part of Canada, and Quebec is going to try to separate from the rest of Canada, and that this extremist right-wing, almost Nazi party from Western Canada was going to actually become the second most important political force in the country, and that the Conservatives, the traditional number one party in Canada, would simply disappear. It would be just like saying, the Republicans would disappear and Ku Klux Klan would take over and become the opposition to the president, whoever, the Democratic Party. And I kind of looked at this man and I said to myself, and why would they do that? And he said to me, because some very important people in Washington needed to balance their books. I forgot about that conversation as soon as the lunch was over. 1995 comes around, and suddenly all these things which this man was talking to me about 3 years earlier are happening right in front of my eyes. And I thought to myself, if the prime ministers and presidents really are powerless to control anything, then who the heck is running the world? So that's really how I started researching Bilderberg. And then 10 years later, in 2005, from one of my well-established sources at the Bilderberg conference, I got a whiff I got a report, or part of the report, which later became a secret source document on the future of humanity. And the document was called Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036. And this document literally dealt with the future of humanity. When I read this document, I realized that we're looking at a document that will forever change the face of humanity, that we're literally standing at the cusp of the greatest evolutionary change in the history of mankind, that in one generation, the generation of our children, kids who are today 15, 20 years old, they are one final generation of 100% human beings on the planet. Their children and their children's children are going to be transhuman, they're going to be post-human, they're going to be man-machines, cyborgs, beings who are not totally human as a result of this, incredible technological revolution we're living through right now.
So explain what transhumanism is then. Is it the mating of human and machine? Is it that simple, or is there more to it?
It's
And when I say mating, maybe that's the wrong word.
It's a very good word. Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. It's a very good word. Now, one of the difficulties about defining all these concepts and explaining it to people is because we're dealing with the future. Whereas in Bilderberg, it was easy. You read the book and suddenly you knew who these bad guys are, or semi-bad guys, who orchestrated coup d'etats and why prices of oil went up and why a president of a particular African country, lost his re-election bid, and all these, kinds of different things. We kind of, figured out who these guys were. We saw the pictures, the documents, their meeting points, and so on and so forth. But with this book, Trance Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, we're dealing with the future, so we're extrapolating what we know now into the near future, but still we're extrapolating. Now, transhumanism is an ultra high-tech dream of computer scientists, philosophers, neural scientists, and many other futurists. And what they do is they seek to use radical advances in technology to literally change the definition of human being, augment the human body, augment the mind, and ultimately the entire human experience, and to change us and turn us into post-human, man-machine. What part man, what part machine, we don't know at this point. But the ideas that these people have go from everything, such as, for example, they believe by 2035, and when I say they, I don't mean some nutbar living in the middle of, rainforest and who lives, off of plants and animals who live in the forest. No, I'm talking some of the most important scientists, philosophers, thinkers, Nobel Prize winners, physicists, nuclear physicists, synthetic biologists in the world. And these people are convinced that by 2035, science will be able to transfer one's personality to an avatar of your choosing. They call this the period or the epoch of cybernetic immortality, the beginning of that period. They are convinced that in one generation, Jason, bodies made of nanorobots will be able to take shape or rise alongside hologram bodies, and by 2045, we will have reached the era of neo-humanity. And the idea is, again, to incrementally move the human mind into more disembodied, and no better way to say it, futuristic vehicles such as avatars, as in the avatars in the films that we've seen. First, a humanoid robot controlled entirely by a human brain via brain-machine interface, then a conscious human brain transplanted in a humanoid robot, and then consciousness uploaded to a computer. These are the kinds of concepts because, again, most people, when I say most, I mean really most people, I don't know, 99, 98% of the world's population are technologically illiterate. And so they don't understand these concepts. But these concepts are about forever to change the very face and the definition of humanity.
Okay, so is this the fountain of youth in essence? Or, because then it just begs the question, Daniel, when you transfer one's personality into a cyborg or some sort of a new form that may be immortal, is it really you? Is it your soul? We have to define all that. But just the simplistic question is that the fountain of youth? That's where
that's another good question without a concrete answer because we're dealing with the future. But let me give you a couple of examples. Okay, now the biggest revolutionary change in science right now is something called synthetic biology. Now, what basically the scientists have done is they have taken a cell and modified the genes of a cell by inserting DNA from another organism. And so the bacteria replicated itself, thus creating a second generation of synthetic DNA. Now, what does it mean? It means that scientists today can create a living organism under the control of man. In other words, we're talking about the creation of beings, and I didn't say human beings, I said beings, which have never existed on the face of the earth. And this technology has taken mankind across a threshold. It's a turning point, that marks a coming of age of a new science, as I said, called synthetic biology, founded in the ambition that very, soon, and I mean within a year or two max, we will be able to design and manufacture a being in a laboratory. And the idea is for these transhumanists and futurists, and the idea what they're after is, how could you say, reach what they call singularity, which is combination of technology and biology. And singularity would occur at a point in which artificial intelligence surpasses the capabilities of the human brain, from cyborgs with very long lifespans to downloading consciousness into itself into a machine. Transhumanists are completely convinced that they will forever change, the definition of a human being. Now, if you actually analyze the terminology as it was described in the Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036, the whole concept of transhumanism was born out of humanism, which is yet another clever disguise of scientism created specifically so that global eugenics operations could be carried out without being noticed. In other words, population reduction by new scientific means.
Scary stuff. Scary stuff. Yeah, wow. Some people say that the Bilderberg Group, and this is one of the conspiracy theories out there, whether it be the Bilderberg directly or the Rockefellers or whoever, want to get the Earth's population down to 500 million people. That's quite a huge reduction. I mean, do you believe any of these arguments?
It all depends on, who frames it and how it's explained. Look, to a certain extent, very basic extent, some of it is true, but I'll qualify it. There are 7 billion people on the planet Earth. It's a small planet with limited natural resources and an ever-expanding population base. Now, my question to you and to all the audience who's listening to us, What's going to happen to us 50 years from now? Are we still going to be here? Yes, we are. How about 100 years? Yes, we are. 200 years? Yes, we are. How about 200,000 years from now? Okay, we're probably not going to be here because there's going to be not enough space on the planet Earth. We don't have to go that far ahead. I think, probably another couple of hundred years is more than enough. As we're running out of natural resources, the elite, the Rockefellers, was just a metaphor for powerful people. Okay, they understand that more population means less food for them, less water for them. And because progress and development of society is directly proportional to population density, they understand that if there's progress, if there's technological advancement in society for all of the human race, then there's going to be wealth, more people, more children, more mouths to feed, and less food. And again, for them to eat, most of us have to die. But there are ways to kill us and not to kill us, or to kill us off.
Okay, but before you get to that, Daniel, just let me address, that Malthusian theory has been around for hundreds of years, and it obviously hasn't come true. You can argue that, everything's different this time. This time it's different, if you will, as they like to say on Wall Street and in the financial markets.
It's not very different. If you actually, look at the historical financial meltdowns, you can go back to, the biggest one in the history of the world was in 1345. That's when we had bubonic plague in Europe and half the population was wiped out. Well, this one's actually worse, But if you analyze, for example, if you look at the United States, look at Detroit. Do you think it's normal that Detroit, which has been the pride of the United States for generations, has been a motor city for decades, today looks like a post-apocalyptic shell, worse, than in this film, I Am Legend with Will Smith, or something like Dresden looked like, after World War II.
Sure. Detroit's a disaster. It's the poster child for big government. Detroit is exactly. It shows so vividly how big government does not work. And, they tried to put all these stupid programs and all the bureaucrats, and they had all these corrupt politicians running the city. And, the unions asked for too much, and they got too greedy, the union thugs, and they drove the business out. And they were, it was a bunch of crony capitalism in reverse, in a way,
Maybe
as they conspire with government,
I wouldn't disagree with you there. But let me give you another example. United States space program, okay, NASA has been the pride not only of the United States, but of the entire world. It's been destroyed. Now, why did they destroy NASA? Because space is progress. And the space program typifies the idea of man as having a purpose in the universe. You see, the future of mankind lies in space. It's going to come to a point where we, the people, are going to have to emigrate to other planets. And we can do that because what separates us from animals is this divine spark of reason that allows us to discover universal principles of nature that improves the lives of everybody on the planet. So when you're living, for the future of mankind, for what the future of mankind is going to be, then our existence has a reason. On the other hand, the empire of money depends upon suppression of scientific development and knowledge by keeping us backwards and dumb. As if you're Bilderberg and Company, there's no such thing as scientific principles of nature. And so the problem here is the concept of what the truth is. In the Bilderberg-led system, the truth doesn't exist because it's an imperialist system. No truth, only the arrogance of power. So what they're doing, just to summarize everything I said. So on the one hand, what we're seeing is wholesale destruction of the world economy. The United States, Argentina, look at Colombia, look at Venezuela. Spain doesn't exist anymore. It's not a country. It's a protectorate. Portugal, we've all seen Greece. We've all seen what they're doing in Cyprus. We're seeing what's going on in the Ukraine. We've seen what happened in Ireland a few years back. So this destruction, so on the one hand, they're destroying progress and development of society because they need to send us all to hell. But on the other hand, they're using the gazillions of dollars and wealth that they have, to develop these super high-end technologies, which cost a lot of money, and to separate, us from them even more so. But I guess the conclusion of all of this, and it's also one of the unsettling conclusions in the book, aside from the fact that technology is an amazing thing. We need technology. But the technologies which are being developed today by the elite are not being developed for the betterment of humanity, and they're not even being developed to stop the terrorists. They're being developed to stop us, the people. And the laws to justify these technologies were not written on a whim. They're specifically designed, as we could talk about the NSA, we could talk about anything you want, to give the government complete authority over the people during the chaos and confusion of this period, which in this strategic trends report they call the age of transition to a planetary civilization.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. So you predicted the financial crisis early on. And do you have any thoughts that you want to share about the financial side of this? You mentioned they're destroying these economies in different countries around the world. You know, I would say that they're trying to hollow out the United States, but it's hard to keep the U.S. down. It's got such an entrepreneurial and innovative culture, and not in Detroit, obviously, but in so many places, you know. It's just part of the kind of the American way of thinking.
You know, what these people want is an empire. Too many people believe that in order to have an empire, you need money. But money is not a determinant of wealth and the economy. Money doesn't affect the development of the planet. There's this delusionary belief that some intrinsic value expressed by money. Now, value is expressed not as a quantity per se, but only as the relative effects of the increase or the decrease of the physical potential relative population density of the individual in society. You know, so what really affects the development of the planet is the human mind affect this development. And the idea is that what we're seeing today is a destruction through the debasement of education, you know, and destruction of social welfare and everything else. We're seeing this, this taking place in the United States, but also in Europe, through such treaties as the Lisbon Treaty was just, which replaced the European Constitution. But the point is the same. It's again, these are the governments around the world which are using, in the case of Europe, the supposed independence of the central bank as a decisive control mechanism for private financial interests, which historically in Europe has been installed as an authoritative instrument against an economic policy of sovereign governments oriented towards the general welfare. And this is the same in Europe, this is the same in the United States, and it's actually being implemented worldwide. And again, the destruction of the world economy is an objective, and people may say, well, that can't be right because, if they destroy the economy, people have no money, then Rockefeller won't be able to sell anything to anybody. The powerful people who run the world, they already control 90% of the world's wealth and the world in general. And if you don't believe me, anywhere you go in the world, on holidays, any nice place out there is already owned by somebody wealthy, okay? So the point is that, they don't need you to buy their trinkets. What they need you to do is to die so that they can have enough water and food for themselves. It's really that simple. Now, whether it's 500,000, a billion, a billion or 2 billion, doesn't matter. The point is, the only truly renewable natural resource in the world is not oil, it's not gas, it's our mind. And it's the capacity of 7 billion.
That's exactly the point, though. I don't know. You seem like you're kind of arguing on both sides of the thing, because if the powers that be that have the ability to sort of run most of the world, I mean, they don't control everything, but they do control a lot. They would have to look at all these people as the way environmentalists, the radical environmentalist movement looks at them. People are the scourge of the earth. People are a cost, a liability. But some people look at people as assets. They think people are assets, and all this great innovation comes from the human mind, and the Malthusian ideal that was so popular a couple of centuries ago. It's been largely disproven in a way because people are resources. No, okay,
because Club of Rome in 1972 wrote the big famous report, Limits to Growth. It may seem that I'm arguing both sides, but actually I'm arguing on one side because they have the brightest, the best minds. They pay them and they work with them and for them. I'm not saying that they're part of this conspiracy, not at all. The fact is that institutions, think tanks, foundations, research centers, universities can hire because they have the money, the best scientists and the best minds. And the innovations, what these people discover, obviously benefit a lot less society than they lead because they have the money to pay and to move this forward. But because there are 7 billion people, out of which almost 4 billion people live on less than $1 a day, to the elite, to the Rockefellers of this world, these 4 billion people are useless eaters. These are the people they want to eliminate. They don't say, we don't want them. Whether it's what I'm saying is, no, we have to build up because our human mind, the potential and the capacity of 7 billion people to discover this, is equal. All we need to do is we need to nurture these people, nourish them intellectually, culturally, physically, and emotionally. And then we have these 7 billion people to discover this and help humanity, except the Rockefellers of this world are not thinking for the betterment of humanity. They're thinking for the betterment of themselves at the expense of 99% of the population.
Yeah, a very, very interesting discussion, Daniel. You're very passionate, and you've got some fascinating ideas here. Give out your website and also tell people where they can get your books. Do you just have the 2 books, or do you have others?
I have 12 books, out of which 5 international bestsellers. I've sold over 6 million copies worldwide in 64 countries. The site is danielestulin.com. The latest book is called Trance, Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. People can buy it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or any store basically in the country. They can go right to my publisher's site, trineday.com, and my site is danielestulin.com again. And also for the Spanish audience, I have a television show on RT Russia Today in Spanish. It's called Desde la Sombra, and it's the highest rated Spanish language show in the world, with over 7 million audience per week. And these are the kinds of passionate subjects that we deal with. It's an interview show on a weekly basis.
Fascinating stuff, fascinating stuff. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for the very interesting interview today, and let's have you back on the show as new news develops, next book, whatever. We'd love to have you back. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me so much.
Want to know what you've missed in the Creating Wealth series? Well, here's your opportunity with Jason's 5-book set. That's shows 1 through 100 through digital download. You save $288 by getting this 5-book set. Learn all of the advanced strategies for wealth creation. For more details, go to jasonhartman.com. Thank you for joining us today for the Holistic Survival Show, protecting the people, places, and profits you care about in uncertain times. Be sure to listen to our Creating Wealth show, which focuses on exploiting the financial and wealth creation opportunities in today's economy. Learn more at www.jasonhartman.com or search Jason Hartman on iTunes. This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, offering very general guidelines and information. Opinions of guests are their own, and none of the content should be considered individual advice. If you require personalized advice, please consult an appropriate professional. Information deemed reliable, but not guaranteed.